Okay, Canada, batten down the hatches, hang on, light your candles and wait out the storm. And this time, this storm is going to be a long one. And of course, I'm talking about the economic storm we're facing. A couple of years ago, I remember watching CBC's Lang O'Leary exchange, and there's Kevin O'Leary talking about Canada's energy sector, how awesome it is, and we are an energy superpower, and the world is knocking on our door to get our energy, and we should have pipelines going all across Canada in every which directions. Damn the First Nations, damn the provinces, whatever. Just put the pipelines in, ship our oil, ship it, ship it, ship it. And he was saying that the Canadian dollar could go as high as $1.20 to the U.S. I mean, he was that positive on the economy a couple of years ago. Now, we're talking somebody that handles a large multi-billion-dollar fund. What happened? What happened to all his know-how? And I am knocking on him because the fact of the matter is all the experts couldn't see what was coming down the pipeline. Or if they did, they were deceiving the ordinary public. Right now, we hear that the price of oil is under $30 to the barrel. Now, don't forget, we're talking about US dollars, and we're talking about top quality or close to top quality Texas sweet crude oil or whatever it's based on. We are not talking about Canada's dirty tar sands bitumen oil. And I know that Canadian media uses oil sands. They don't want to say tar sands. Heaven help, we say tar sands. But around the world, or if you watch American media or whatever, they do refer to it as tar sands. And here's a simple thing. As the price of oil crashed, so did the value of the Canadian dollar. Today, Canada's dollar, $100 today is worth what? 65 to the US dollar, maybe, if you're lucky, depending on where you get your exchange. Our dollar's been hammered, as has the oil prices. And this shouldn't come as a shock to anyone. I entered Canada's work field back in the 1970s in sawmill, working in British Columbia. And at that time, the talk between the seasoned employees was all about how Canada exports resources. We're a resource exporting country. We export raw logs and import finished product. That has not changed. We have stayed true to that formula all the way to 2016. We export, and import. Take a look at yourself. Check out your underwear, the tag on it. Where's it made? Where's your t-shirt made? Where's your shirt, your pants, your running shoes? Check around your house, your toaster, microwave, whatever. Where are they made? They're not made in Canada. We export raw resources and import finished products. So when the raw resource sector gets hit, like the oil industry, we shouldn't be surprised by the negative consequences to Canada.
All right, to continue the discussion now on the lifting of sanctions on Iran and what it means for the global oil market, I want to bring in Marin Katusa. Marin is the chairman of Katusa Research and also the author of The Colder War. Marin, really good to have you. We've been talking about this for quite a while. You've come on the show a number of times talking about the sanctions, Iran oil, etc. No surprise that the sanctions did eventually lift. We're in 2016, and no surprise that oil is just tanking as a result. Now, Iran says it's ready to increase exports by 500,000 barrels a day. What do you think it actually can do, and how quickly?
Exactly that. If you recall the last conversation we had, I said it'd start at 500,000 barrels, and then it'd take about 12 months to get another 500,000 barrels into the market. This is all about the Asian market share. So if you read what Saudi Arabia came out and said, hey, Saudi Aramco may do an IPO, that's their refining division because it's about the market share. The Saudis have already recognized that the threat from Iran is real. And it's not just oil. Everybody in the media is talking just about the oil that Iran's going to flood. But remember, Iran has some of the world's largest gas reserves. Those sanctions are also lifted. So you're seeing a deflationary event, and now it's all about international market share. Who's going to provide the Asians with the oil and gas?
A big competition underway here. And you mentioned Saudi Arabia. The return of Iran oil is certainly shaking up that country. In fact, on Sunday, Saudi Arabia's stock market plunged more than 5%. What does this really mean for Saudi Arabia?
Well, look, there's no secret that that's their biggest rival in the region. It's about the regional influence, it's about the political influence, it's also about market share influence. So, you know, Saudi Arabia hasn't had to really deal with Iran in the last 4 or 5 years in this oil market. Now their biggest nemesis is back on the block. And more importantly, with these sanctions being lifted, nobody's talking about the billions of dollars of military spending Iran's going to be doing with their closest ally, Russia. So there's a real big political shift here, and I expect the temperature, the political temperature in the region to be rising. This is going to be a historical event coming in the next 12 months.
Indeed. You know, just on the topic of Saudi Arabia was actually expecting oil prices to hit $29 a barrel, and we know that because last year at the end of the year they predicated their 2016 budget on $29 oil. So what does this mean, though? I mean, does this mean that they can hold out their strategy of outproducing their competitors? Does this mean they're preparing themselves for it and they're ready for it?
Definitely. A, they're ready. B, they've got over $600 billion in foreign reserves, so they have a nice nest egg that other countries don't have. And more importantly, they're investing in joint ventures on the refinery business with companies like Total and China. So they're really expanding for the market share. They're preparing themselves for lower for longer oil. And we see that where Saudi Aramco signed a deal with Mexico's Pemex. So you see these new joint ventures happening. So don't underestimate the ability of Saudi Aramco to produce at the levels that they're producing now at even lower oil prices.
And outside of OPEC, I mean, what does this mean for other oil players? We've got other countries that stand to lose as a result, countries like Russia, Canada, where you are. How do you see those countries faring as a result?
So as I've been saying for the last 12 months, don't worry about the Russians. The Russians are going to do just fine because of their currency factor. You know, you see the Russians producing at almost historic numbers. So the Russians are going to continue because their infrastructure is built up. New deep shore oil wells probably won't be on the pace that they expected. Now let's go to Canada. Canada's a big problem because of the differential. So the heavy oil in Canada is trading as low as $8 a barrel. Even in regions in the Bakken, high sulfur oil, believe it or not, is trading at negative 50 cents a barrel. That means the oil producer has to pay the refinery 50 cents a barrel to get rid of the oil. You know, in 25, 30 years, when the history books are written about the shale, people will read back of, wow, this is a historic time here. So North America is going to be the interesting point. You know, it's a three-way international market share, and people don't realize that actually the Americans are now importing more oil than any point in the last 24 months. So will the shale start declining? That's something that I'm looking forward to towards the end of this year, because there's a new phenomenon going on in the shale fields that no one's talking about, pretend and extend. All that debt money, what are the bankers going to do with these oil fields that are essentially uneconomic and they're not worth what they were signed at? So you sit down with the oil producers, renegotiate the debt terms, and hope for a better day 2-3 years out. So all of these debt terms are being pushed out 12, 24, 36 months, kicking the can down the road, hoping for better oil prices in the next few years. So I do see lower oil prices in the near term. Just like I said the last time I was on your show, you're going to see sideways volatility. Could go to 35. Could it test 25? Definitely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because
WTI.
Last time you were on the show, I remember you saying that it could go likely below 40. And we sort of, you corrected me once when I said, will it go below 30? And here we are. It actually is below 30. So now what sense are you getting about where it's headed? I mean, we've had companies like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, they've predicted $20 oil. The Royal Bank of Scotland said recently that if it dips below 30, then it could head towards 16. So we're getting a lot of bearish predictions. I mean, would you go as far as that? Or are you, a little bit more optimistic than they are?
Well, I'm optimistic in the long term. Like I've said, for my funds, we're over 50% cash in US dollars, and I think the trend is your friend, so I wouldn't bet against $25 oil here. The key is to survive this downtrend, and there's going to be a big shakeout here. So when you look at the Saudis and the Russians, and people forget the Chinese are one of the top 5 oil producers in the world. A lot of people are shocked to hear that number. They're subsidizing their production. So in this deflationary environment, expect the Chinese to subsidize their production, their refinement, and then that's a deflationary event for the established world. So I can see Norway having a tough time, North America having a tough time. So I don't, could you see $15 oil? I guess in this market we could see anything. I don't expect it really because any new development doesn't happen. And even in Kuwait, when I went down to Kuwait, you know, they have a hard time making money, anything under $20 a barrel. So we're at that lows. Could it go down another few dollars? Definitely, but prepare yourself here for lower for longer, definitely.
Oh boy. All right. Very bleak outlook for all of us. Thank you so much for that, Chairman of Catoosa Research.
This is what it takes.
Yes.
You know, this is all good news in the long run. You know, if you survive these bear markets, you will thrive when it turns around. Just, you know, the key is to not overextend yourself.
All right. Survival of the fittest. Okay. Thanks so much, Marin Catoosa. Appreciate that.
I have been watching Marin Catoosa on RT now for nearly a year. He is spot on. I have posted a lot of the videos where he talks about stuff because I don't get paid for that. I do it because I want people to get the information, to be informed. Because, man, I tell you, when you listen to our mainstream corporate media or our government media, CBC, or you listen to politicians, it's all a load of BS to hype up their whatever the heck they're hyping at that time. The fact of the matter is, in my opinion, is that Canada is in deep financial trouble, and it will continue to be. The price of oil will stay down for a long time. There's no shortage of it if you consider that Iran is coming on the market now, and that in the United States, they're shutting down wells. They're capping wells. They're capping them and waiting for the price to start rising. So what do you think is going to happen if the price of oil suddenly starts going up to 40, 50, 60 bucks a barrel? They're going to open up the wells that they got capped. So once again, the price will be driven down. It's a economy that's kind of like a dog chasing its tail right and round, and the perfect definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's not going to happen. And we're not even at the halfway point in our turndown of the economy. That's why I say that the turndown is going to be long. Don't forget, remember last year's election? I mean, it seems like so far away. Man, you know, it was what, 4 months ago, 3 months ago. October, we had the election, and at that time, the topic was TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Have you heard any more about it on the news or anything like that? In the States, they're talking about it on RT. You get Tom Hartman talking about it, but up here in Canada, we hardly hear a peep about it. It's going to be good for you. That's all we hear. Even though it's been said that it's going to impact dairy farmers, it's going to impact the auto industry, and a heck of a lot more, I guarantee you. We're going to be just bleeding jobs from the TPP deal. That's a given. And the cost of healthcare, pharmaceuticals, everything's going to go up. And we don't hear about that, you know. The news just focuses on something, and then they beat it to death, and then they find something else, something a little bit relevant but irrelevant. Like, you know, guess what's going to be big news this summer? Wait for it. Brazil and the Olympics. Never mind that Brazil's economy is in tatters, and it's got huge problems. There are strikes, all sorts of things happening. They have a huge drought happening. Forget about that. It's going to be the Olympics. That's where our golden age athletes will be going to bring home the gold. We're going to own the podium, maybe. We're going to own the podium. We're going to gather more gold than ever before. And it's all about just distracting, taking away from the reality of what's happening, taking away from the reality that we are losing jobs on a continual basis. Today it was Post Media across Canada is cutting out a bunch of reporter jobs from media. And then in New Brunswick, it's Potash Corporation shutting down a mine. 430 good union jobs will be lost. People that make good money, that spend the money in their community, that contribute to the community, that's gone. And it's going to continue throughout. We're just starting the year. So we need real news, we need information, and we need a government that's going to level with us and isn't going to be trying to say the same old BS and cloud the situation. You know, I know people don't want to hear negative things, but I tell you, it's better to hear negative things and be able to handle what's happening than to think that everything is good until suddenly one day the carpet's pulled out from underneath you. At least that's the way I see it.